Hello, Renegade marketers. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. You're about to hear a bonus huddle where experts share their insights into the topics of critical importance to our flocking awesome community, CMO huddles. When it comes to building trust and credibility, few things are more powerful than a great customer story. In this huddle, Alexander Ferguson shares how to capture compelling video testimonials, where to use them for maximum impact, and the data behind why they work. Plus, we explore creative ways to get customers on board and make testimonials a seamless part of your marketing playbook. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. You'll be helping our quest to be the #1 B2B marketing podcast. All right, let's dive in. Hello, huddlers. I'm excited to introduce you to Alexander Ferguson, the founder of TeraLeap. Alex and his team have helped us create over 55 huddler testimonials. So we've been able to tap into their expertise and can testify to the excellence of their process and execution. With that, hello, Alex. How are you and where are you this fine day?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here. And I'm over in Raleigh, North Carolina, East Coast. So a little bit
Uh,
south of you.
yes, exactly. Same time zone. We started talking about unicycles. I think we'll come back to that because we share that in common. But just in case our audience has to leave early or we need to persuade them to stick around, can you offer 3 things that many marketers get wrong when they're recording or creating customer video testimonials?
Three things that I see many marketers are getting wrong when it comes to video testimonials. First one is they don't understand the value of them or really how to track the ROI on them. Second is they often find it difficult or to get them or find it too expensive. And then also they are missing out on several key use cases that I think can really help lower customer acquisition costs, accelerate sales pipeline. And that's what I'm going to dig into more today. But those are the common things that I'm seeing that are missing.
Yeah. So let's go through those one at a time and make so they don't understand how to measure value. Talk about why that's challenging and what the solutions are.
Well, when it comes to video testimonials, often it's understanding, okay, all the ways that you can leverage it and understand. And a little bit, I'll unpack kind of the top stats that I pay attention to when it comes to video and then using it for video testimonials, but also then being able to see where are you getting the return on effort that once you've crafted and created it, where is it being leveraged across your marketing and sales efforts? And then you got the being too expensive and difficult. That's been a common issue for a long time, I think, for a lot of folks.
So, and I love the return on effort because that's right. We're going to spend some time. We got to get the customer. We got to get a camera on them, record and produce. What are the top stats that you care about?
Yeah. So the top stats that I'm constantly paying attention when it comes to video specifically is impression to click ratio. So how many impressions are you getting that's being loaded to then how many times you're actually clicking on it. Then I'm looking at watch time and completion ratio. And then the biggest one is conversions. So wherever you're leveraging or embedding that video piece, the video testimonial, what was the conversions before and after based on that call to action on that page? And that tells me each of those 3 stats are telling me different pieces of the puzzle of how it's performing.
Well, we keep narrowing down and I keep wanting to go deeper. So impressions to clicks.
Yeah.
So I've got it on the website, but did they actually watch it? Right.
Mhm.
So what did they click on it? Okay. That one I get. Watch time and completion rates. That assumes that you have some software that enables you to track that, right?
Leveraging video hosting platforms, you're gonna be able to see that watch time and completion. That's gonna tell you how well the stories are being told, if it's actually captivating and pulling people in to get that conversion in the end.
So video platform, we're talking, we actually get that kind of data from YouTube, or do we need a video, more sophisticated platform?
YouTube is an okay place to start, but platforms like Vimeo, Wistia, Vidyard are gonna give you much, much more analytical data on the video usage.
Okay. So we're going to need, if we want to get this data, we're going to need a better hosting plan that will enable us to do it. And obviously, completion time is in theory important, but really the last thing that you talked about is, did they watch this And ultimately, did they convert, at least move to the next step? And so how are you tracking that? Is there a way so that we got our video and we somehow or other tag them on HubSpot and we can actually track that person who watched the video ended up closing kind of thing?
Yeah, let me give you a case study here. One of the customers I work with, Vitally, and they have case study pages with these videos embedded on it. And then using HubSpot, some other tools, they're able to see the watch time based on being cookied. They can see correlation of it was 97% of the customers who actually closed and became prospects who became customers went to these pages and watched these videos. So they saw a perfect correlation with this was part of the sales journey that helped accelerate it.
And is that common? That is part of it? I mean, you would think it's social proof. You would think that yeah, they'd want to watch, well, what do the customers say?
The question is how much are those stories perfectly embedded in that journey, or and able to come across it and using it. Another company that I've worked with, ClearGov, they actually used it as intent data for their sales team to follow up on. So if they watched 50% of a customer story, their sales team used that as a nice trigger point. So if anything, these customer stories can be a tool to kind of initiate next stage of a drip campaign or a sales effort.
Again, it makes sense that someone who gets 50% through it is interested enough. They have some intent. Did they already know that that was the magic number because those people converted later on, or are they just sort of guessing and hoping?
Probably the latter of assuming if you get to 50%, you're somewhat interested. So we'll
Right.
take that as a positive signal.
Right. It feels very different than someone who says, I want a demo or ask for pricing information. Those two feel like higher intent, but I get it. It's so funny because I'm so conscious right now of trying to align the sales actions with the buyer interests, right? And they're not always the same.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of companies actually push it in the wrong way because the buyer, in theory, wants to be in control of the journey and isn't asking for a call, isn't waiting for a call unless they say, I want to talk to somebody. So, all right, different topic, different person, different thing. So, we're watching for that. And then obviously, we're looking for conversions, and one would hope that that would be on that. So, going back to earlier, we talked about difficult to get. Obviously, in some categories, it's like cybersecurity. No one wants to say, "Oh, we're using this thing and it's blocked." All that they just don't want to talk about it. But let's go out of industries where it wouldn't be bad for a customer to talk. How have you found helping your clients getting these testimonials, and what makes it work better?
There's a lot that we can unpack there, but at the root of it, what I've seen as a shift is the mentality. 4 years ago, something happened, 2020, and
Oh
people are
yeah, that
more
thing.
that small thing. People are more ready than ever to be on video. So if in many cases, it's not being afraid to just make the request. Let's hop on and be able to capture your story. But it depends on the flow of how you do it. And I can unpack that in a little bit, but it's like don't be afraid of it. That's kind of the first part. It's not they're not going to be as apprehensive as they used to be.
Right, they may even be flattered. They're not worried ab so one, they're not worried about being on camera because 'cause they're, in theory, camera ready, they're on it all the time, and you can't be afraid, but so now we're asking them, and they're sort of thinking, "God, do I have to get permission from my boss? Am I the right person?" You know, there's some who have no problem. I mean, most, like CMOs, for example, are more than willing to hop on a camera and, be on video. Whether they'll do a testimonial or not is a whole nother thing. So, what else is there that the folks listening to this could do to get more customers to be other than delivering a higher quality of product and service that would get them to do a testimonial?
The big one is usually timing. If you're able to capitalize on the maximum goodwill, you know the moment when they are excited for it and be able to make the request at that moment, then they have a much higher impetus. So it's kind of a basic concept, but how often I miss it, it's like you wait till the very end, you're like, well, now we need some customer stories. Let's go ask them versus having a system in place.
Right. It's like they've finally got it up and running, whatever it is. If it's a software they're fully implementing, they've closed it's working for them. Don't wait until the contract's coming up for renewal. Right.
Yes, that's too late. That is
That is
definitely.
too late. So it's timing. People forget about it and don't get around. So it's got to be part of your built into your process. It's
Mhm. Yes.
almost like your customer service process.
Yeah.
Okay. And then The last thing you talked about are use cases
Yeah.
as the thing that they get wrong. Go deeper on that.
Oh gosh, I definitely have a lot, and we can dig into it more. But I found there's really 7 major use cases that you're have an opportunity to leverage these customer stories. And it's interesting. I heard a stat recently that 70% of content produced specifically for sales teams goes unused. And so it's like we create these great stories, but often they're collecting digital dust on the back corners of our website, and they're not leveraged across the rest of our campaigns. Now, I'm not saying that, video testimonial, like in the video format, is the answer for everything, but I'm looking at social proof in their story of being able to repurpose it. So what I'd really love to unpack is like, hey, why do I say video? Like I'm such a bullish on video because
Right.
that can lead us into all the different ways we can use it.
Please.
So, I mean, there's 4 major types of social proof that I see. We've got your written, simple quotes, written case studies. They're great, been around for ages. You have your image types of testimonies, so taking the text and putting it alongside their photo or other graphic material of the product. You have live testimonials. So at a conference, be able to pull your customer on stage or do as a customer reference, be able to ask them to get on a call. And then you have video. Each one of them have their merits, but that's kind of actually in the sliding scale. I would say live is the best. Nothing beats actually showing one customer talking to another one, having that in-personal communication, that authentic, but it doesn't scale. And that's one of the reasons why I love video, is because if you capture it in video, you get everything else. You get a lot of the benefit of live, of that authentic, real humanness. I mean, we're in an age of video where people are expecting and they want that authenticity. They're actually more skeptical of written content more than ever before. But then being able to repurpose it and use, you still get the written content out of it, you still get the image content out of it, but then it's like the story itself, being able to capture it in a story format. There's so much cool science behind it I've started to unpack. Like there's this concept of narrative transportation, so helping someone to experience a story as if it was their own. So often we'll read stories or watch movies, read books, and you feel like you are the character when you see it. And you're able to create that with these customer stories as they see themselves in the shoe of that potential prospect. Say, yes, I imagine myself, really evoking a lot more stronger emotions and a lot persuasive argument there. And then it pulls into that emotional resonance where just data and facts, very important. But if you can tie it in as well, there's really some fascinating studies done on how the brain's reliance on emotional markers really play a key role in streamlining complex decision-making processes. That's why bringing in emotion is so important on these bigger decision makings. We often call it our gut, what our gut feels. But these stories help actually use that cognitive bias in that decision-making process. And then you got memory recall, of course. Video, it really plays a lot more multiple sensory emotions. So pulling in a higher chance that it'll stay in the long-term memory. They'll remember your brand and a positive reference. So that's a lot, both the science
Yes.
behind it.
Right. No, but
But
I get it. I'm going to recap
yeah,
just for a second.
yeah.
Video, good. Live, better. Quotes, okay. Right. And so you sort of have this scale, and video in theory is scalable, which live is not necessarily. Okay. So I think everybody listening will hopefully, just by the fact that they're listening, will recognize that video testimonials are a thing that they ideally should have. They're probably thinking about the cost and the mechanics and the logistics and as you said, very early on, the energy that it takes to do it, the return on effort. And we actually got lost a little bit because we were talking about the 7 ways you can use them. So
Yeah.
but I'm going to stop for a second because you've sort of gotten into this whole thing of social proof, right?
Mhm.
And why that's so important. So I'm about to buy your product. I'm trying to eliminate risk, part
Mhm.
one. So if I see a big customer who I admire and know and recognize, and they say, yeah, I'm working with Alex at TeraLeap and their guys are fantastic, that takes risk off the table. That's
Yes. Yes.
right. And,
That
and
peer validation plays such a huge role
right.
in reducing that perceived risk.
And then if it happens to be a testimonial in my industry with the same problem, it even makes me more comfortable, right? Because, oh my gosh, they're in construction like we are, and they have the same challenge that we do. Oh my God, I know, and so all of that. But we wanted to talk. So we got social proof covered. I don't think we need to sort of sell that. But
Realizing that if you get video, if you start with video as far as social proof, you'll still get the rest of the social proof. That's why I always advise, it's like everyone understands the need for social proof, but everyone says, well, should I do video? Well, yes, start with video, and then you're able to get all the rest of the content. It's a kind of a good starting point.
Right. I mean, you could even do audio testimonials. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that you can do once you have the video. So
Yeah.
we're going to start with video.
But then actually getting them is still the challenge of how do you nurture a customer and get them to say, "Sure, we do it." We touched on that briefly. I have one kind of the way I look at it of a suggestion to look at is a visual here as a kind of
Okay.
a framework that I can pull up. It's looking, okay, how much is it embedded in your overall customer journey process? I mean, ideally, it's already in your contracts that or people are signing up, they say, "Yes, I already know that I'm going to share." It doesn't have to be too much. I mean, our own ones are when we've completed and you're happy, we'll capture a story, you'll be able to review it and approve it. Mentioning again during onboarding, I mean, say, "Hey, we already know this is gonna be great." Your customer service is saying, "This is gonna be what we're gonna follow back up with you to be able to capture your story." And then the big one is on a review call for your sales team or customer service if you're a high volume business sending out surveys, NPS surveys, or if you're a low volume, high touch, getting on a review call, asking them there live is crucial. Most of the time, though, folks are like, "All right, we need customer stories now." As kind of a last advocacy step, send out an email, let's find some people. But it's if you're embedding it into your customer journey like this, then you're going to dramatically increase the likelihood you're going to get customer stories coming through regularly.
It's funny in the I remember a number of customers who struggled to get testimonials to the point that they baked into a discount into their contract. You know, you'll achieve a discount of whatever 3 to 10% if you agree to do a testimonial.
It's a strategy that works really well. That's the type of incentive that can make people say, "Yeah, sure." And I mean, these are valuable assets to help convert more. So you just have to kind of see the trade-off
Right.
there.
Now, obviously, the NPS and that thing is that you don't want a testimonial from an unhappy
Yeah.
customer, but it does beg a question that's so interesting, and I don't know how you balance this. When we look at Amazon, if we don't see a negative review, we know the deck is stacked. There's got to be something, you know, and having a negative review actually adds credibility on like on third-party sites. It really does help. But nobody's going to record a negative testimonial for their website. So I guess you never get that balance. It's always going to be suspect because these are yours, right?
Ideally, when you're doing capturing this customer story and the way we do it is you find out what their initial hesitations or objections were, and you embed that as part of the story. So people can say, "Oh, I had that same concern or issue," and then they can share how, well, it wasn't too much of a concern. So it brings a little bit more reality to it, but no, it won't be, you're not going to be posting 3-star reviews from these
These
types of,
guys sucked. I hated everything about it. Don't
yeah.
work with them if it's the last thing you're probably not going to put that on your website. And you know, most people don't want to be recorded saying negative things. They probably do it on their own somewhere else. So
Yeah.
uh we were going to go back to some process things that you know that came up earlier. So as we do that, and I'm trying to find the use cases. Let's go to use cases.
Yes. So there's a lot of powerful use cases for being able to use video testimonials on. The biggest one is sales enablement. I think it's a great easy place to begin. Where I really highly recommend is have a customer stories showroom. That's kind of the nickname or the nomenclature I've given it. Basically, a digital repository of all your stories that sales and marketing can search through and filter by industry, by company size, problems experienced, results achieved. Basically, you're equipping the team, both marketing and sales, to have the right context of here's a quote, here's a story, be able to pull it. And it could be as simple as a spreadsheet where you're pulling down all the stories, the videos, the short quotes, and being able to then make sure you get the right story, the right person, as you build out that library. So that's what I'd recommend is a great use case for sales enablement is to have that showroom and then use it in drip campaigns and follow-ups to prep calls to send it to decision makers to bypass gatekeepers is a powerful tool then once you have those stories.
Okay, so I it totally makes sense if you have a lot of testimonials in a library of some kind that is accessible and sortable. And I'm imagining if you're a larger company and you have a content management system, then it's easy to search and tag these
Yep.
things. I also believe, but I could be completely wrong, that you could somehow or other tag them in a HubSpot as well. So again, if we think about this as we have a customer's expressed interest in some level. We know their vertical market. You have a testimonial for their vertical market, and they're doing, you know, let's say they're in the middle somewhere of the fun of their journey. Just, you know, your AE pops them a line and say, "Hey, thought you'd appreciate this video from a customer in your industry."
Hmm.
that's like really good.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is salespeople don't do that. And I'm just wondering the tools that are needed to make this easier for them. I mean, I guess imagine at some point this all gets automated.
Ideally, but I so often I see it gets missed, and that's why I often I bring it up is because it's like that last final hurdle just to make sure they have the proper context to go with it plays a huge role. But then that's one element is sales enablement of the many
Okay.
different use cases. I can go through all
Let's
7.
go through, give me a couple of them and we'll sort of
Well, yeah.
beat them up.
So another one is website for sure. That's a common one. It makes sure for website conversions. You've got a beautiful library here. So a wall of love is a common great thing to have. So you've got plenty of stories that you've pulled
Whoa,
through.
look at that. That's like 50 plus. Look at all that love. Wow. And just for the record, we are completely underutilizing these. And this is a question that I have is where do they and how do they live? So, these live on our website, but I'm curious from a best practices standpoint, wall of love is great, but it's not sortable. That this is kind of tricky, right?
Yes. So ideally, you'd have some functionality. So Vitally, one of our customers I mentioned earlier, they're able to sort by industry, model, roles, etc. And then you're able to quickly find and click on a story and be able to watch the video content, the story behind it, and then be able to see the case study connected to it. One power is being able to quickly sort by that. Another use case I actually love what Prismatic did is pulling the data from the stories and creating a cost calculator. So then actually being able to combine both the emotional story behind it along with the logical data connected on one page is a really cool use case. Basically, 2 data points on the same page. You see the logical data behind it, and then you
Right.
see the story that backs it up.
Got it. And so again, there we go. We got the logic and the rational. And so the emotional part of video is important, but keep going on the use cases because this is great.
Another one will be definitely email campaigns. And there's a couple ways that you can look at that. One could be as far as for sales, how they're leveraging it for drip campaigns and newsletters. Those would be the top ones. A lot of them, when you're looking at using it there, it's making sure you have a nice still image that captivates and makes them want to click on it. GIFs are even better if you had those, along with like a short, brief text to go with it. And there's value in having the video testimonial, people even knowing that it exists, just when they see it and they can understand before they click on it. But email is a big one. I know for one of our customers, CLD, every once in a while will change their newsletter to focus on one particular customer. So they'll use that chance to unpack the story behind it. And they saw on when they used a customer story, they saw a 500% increase in engagement because we're like, oh, this is a peer. They're interested in how they're being leveraged. So it's like, again, when the story is relevant to your exact market, then you can really get a lot higher engagement than some more corporate opportunities.
So on the email, and that makes sense. Obviously, it's generally relevance wins, right? It's why Instagram ads are so effective because they know who we are and they go, oh, look, Drew likes penguins, so we're going to show Drew penguins, and it's amazing how that relevance keeps you there and makes you interested. You mentioned animated GIFs are better than a still image of the video. I mean, animated GIFs are so easy to create. Why wouldn't everybody do it?
Another step, ideally, you're leveraging tools that could just automate some of that
Right.
process. But if you had a choice between the two, definitely you choose the GIF.
Right. I mean, and one of my favorite parts of Loom, when you're creating those sort of personal videos that are sort of you could just, hey, hi, they automatically create a GIF, which is great.
Exactly.
It's usually like, hey, something
Yes. Yes.
only slightly annoying. But yeah. And the reason we're not embedding the video in it is just too damn big. It won't go through. And, right, we can't embed. Okay.
Correct. And embed.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This show is brought to you by CMO Huddles, the only marketing community dedicated to B2B greatness and that donates 1% of revenue to the Global Penguin Society. Why? Well, it turns out that B2B CMOs and penguins have a lot in common. Both are highly curious and remarkable problem solvers. Both prevail in harsh environments by working together with peers, and both are remarkably mediagenic. And just as a group of penguins is called a huddle, our community of over 300 B2B marketing leaders huddled together to gain confidence, colleagues, and coverage. If you're a B2B CMO, Why not dive into CMO huddles by registering for our free starter program on cmohuddles.com. Hope to see you in a huddle soon. So we've got email, we've got newsletter. What are the other use cases?
Other big two ones are ads and social media for sure. So for there to do it well, there's a couple things you want to keep in mind on if you're going to use video testimonials in either ads or social media. Formatting matters a lot. So content clip choice, so what you're selecting from the story, as well as the style and the format of it. So we're talking about aspect ratio. For social media, most people are consuming on their phones, so you're not going to want to do a widescreen, what we call 16:9. You're going to want to do a square portrait because that fills more of the smartphone as people are scrolling or going through the content. Closed captioning is an obvious one, is kind of needed, but it's the content clip that matters sometimes the most. There's two ones that I've seen work well for ads. One is problem focused. So it's really just laying hard into the challenge they were facing and potentially not even telling how you solved it. It creates a open loop in their brain, a cognitive open loop where they're like, all right, well, tell me more. The call to action is go see the full case study and be able to unpack it. And then, of course, results focused works well. For retargeting, great campaign is using video testimonials for objection handling. So after they've come to your site, they're looking at other pieces, be able to find whether it's a clip from the customer story or a highlight of multiple customers addressing of that objection. Great retargeting campaign for that.
So interesting. And this is rather sophisticated, obviously, where they come to the website, but they didn't click, they didn't watch, they didn't do anything, but you know who they are, so you can programmatically reach them. But getting them with an objection, you're at that point assuming that the objection is X, Y, or Z, right? You don't know. You just know they didn't watch a testimonial. You just know they didn't do the ROI calculator. You know they didn't do request a demo. So it's fascinating. Think about it. It makes sense. And you would also have to do that in a way that you weren't planning an objection in their mind that they hadn't actually had.
Yes, it's like knowing what are the most common ones so you can address those. Don't create ones that are on the edge fringe cases. But after
Right.
you've done enough customer interviews, you're still have to hear the things that keep recurring. And you're like, okay, this is a common objection or concern they often have. Well, let's make sure we have a content around that speaks to it. And the power of like a lot of social platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or Meta or YouTube, is creating video funnels. So being able for people that watch the top of the first video, you can retarget them based on whether they 50 or 75% viewing, and then they can continue to watch more of the different videos that get to address those objections or show the results.
So I seem to recall we're not doing any LinkedIn advertising at this point, but we did for several years. And I seem to recall that we struggled to make the testimonials actually work for us. And part of it was, I think, on a LinkedIn platform, the first 6 seconds or so, it's everything, right?
Mm.
Whether that, and the testimonials are hard to structure in a way that in 6 seconds you get that thing. So I'm assuming that may have been the reason. I don't know, but it is a tricky environment to use those testimonials. I mean, what are the things, if you're going to use it as ads, what do we need to know about?
The big one there is definitely the content choice that you're selecting from it and what you're working from. I always, our mindset is doing customer interviews where you have about 20, 30 minutes of customer content you're able to pull from. And ideally, when you're doing, you're having them say it in a couple different ways. So you have a lot to choose from. But the headline, ideally, you're putting a headline on the video itself that grabs their attention. So it stops them from scrolling. You don't expect them to start watching the video. There's a statement that pulls them in, and then you have in the video itself that unpacks it a little bit further. And ideally, these are 30-second videos. They're not long, but they're targeted to that problem or the objection they were facing.
Yeah, and then I'm thinking about your vertical formatting, and I'm like if this were our format that we had, we'd have a tough time. We'd narrow it in. So,
Yes.
all right,
Yeah.
so it can work with ads. The good news is, like, if you're testing these things on LinkedIn, you can test it versus control. You can keep testing it in various ways until you figure out which one is driving not just click-throughs, but actual back-end conversions. And in theory, LinkedIn favors videos versus other types of content because they're competing with places that have lots and lots of video. It's funny, I'm not finding necessarily that videos outperform written content.
LinkedIn is not performing video as much. I would say Meta and YouTube are definitely
Oh,
the
yeah.
the higher video platforms if you're going to post content there. But what it is the hooks matter more than ever before
Right.
because people are scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just this. And it's like Instagram or TikTok have trained us just to keep going until something goes
Yes.
"Beep," and then we get our little buzz. So speaking of, you mentioned using it as ads, and I of course immediately jumped to using it as ads on social media, but we talked about this as social media content, organic content. Have you seen cases where this content really got a lot of engagement? And because I'm curious, and I spent a lot of time thinking about engagement on social content.
Yeah. So what's interesting, I just saw it's a mixture of social and ad here, is a little bit more on the UGC side. So user generated content of mentality of make already planning ahead with a customer that wants to and is willing to promote it with you. That's where you see the most success. I just saw this post from her name is Stephanie Newsey, and she QuickBooks. She did a testimonial for QuickBooks, and on LinkedIn you can do thought leadership ads. So she posted it to her profile, but then they boosted it effectively to their target demographic, and it's quite impressive the engagement on this particular ad. And so I'm seeing this as the UGC testimonial mindset is probably the best performing ones right now.
Right. Well, there's a couple factors in there. One, it was initially posted by an individual. That's part one, right? And that's essential. And this is where it gets really tricky because you don't want the company posting the testimonial and being the source because you're just not getting people don't engage with companies, with rare exception. I mean,
Yeah.
Red Bull can do it, but they have incredible content, right? Okay. So we're individuals sharing video testimonials, we're coordinating with the customer so that they can do it. If they're boosting it, they can do it. We've also seen just where you just go and share it directly with a bunch of people that you think will be interested in it. I mean, and like in LinkedIn, that's really easy. If they're your first contacts, you can just say, "Hey, thought you might enjoy this," and you can send it to 50 to 100 people at a time.
I would say sales, follow up, like one-to-one communications is still probably one of the best use cases of these stories. Being able to send to it, it's powerful. One of the best use cases for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all the use cases, right? I mean, it's a lot. And we've
But
talked.
yeah, so there's plenty. There's more, but we can stop
Well,
there.
and I mean, I think that's really important because this goes back to, where's the ROI on this, or return on effort, ROE? And when you see that you record one testimonial and there's 7 or 8 places and ways that you can use it, you start to say, wow, that's incredible. There's tremendous value. And I know that our team is thinking about, okay, are we using all those use cases right now? Right. Because we've got the testimonials, but are we using them all? And I'm sure listeners and watchers are thinking the same thing. So, interestingly, we had Sahil Patel of Spiralize on recently. I think you may have seen it or whatever, but he said that video can deplete user attention,
Yeah.
which I thought was a really interesting thing. It's like you're only going to get a certain amount of time if they're watching a video and doing instead of something else. Is that the best use of your time? I guess. And again, he's in the A/B page optimization. So he's necessarily saying don't put a video on the landing page necessarily.
So I talked to him in depth about this.
Okay, good. Please.
And we unpacked this a little bit more, and he's helped me a lot too. Appreciate okay, the use of video. Where does it play in for his uses? He's talking about landing pages specific for like an ad or for a home page. And the best social proof is often more at near the top. He's advising it's imagery or text, but it's simple. And because yeah, I mean, it takes time to dig into a video. Where he agreed with me as we and talked about it further is it's great further down on the page. It actually plays a key role if they are not bought, they're not ready to take action. All right, how can you further engage them and address those
Right.
objections and sell them on it? So halfway to maybe 2/3 down the page is the perfect place for a video testimonial. Don't put it at the top because if you have a clear call to action, click this button, sign up for free trial, etc., let them just take that action if they're already sold.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Because chances are, if they're coming to their website, they were interested enough to learn more. And if they're not satisfied to click for the demo or click for a call
they're
or
gonna keep
whatever,
scrolling.
then
They're gonna keep scrolling.
let them scroll and they'll scroll down. They go, oh, look at
And
testimonial. Okay, maybe I could watch that.
that's where you hook them and you pull them in.
Right. And at that point, and I am imagine, I'm thinking, putting my Sahil hat on, you also can have the call to action button right next to the video too. So
Yes.
you just keep going down the page with them. Uh,
Yes. Absolutely.
Very cool.
When you're looking at capturing it, we didn't really talk much about it, but I can touch on it briefly.
Please, yeah, let's talk about execution. Right.
Yeah, there's kind of like three ways that I see are how you can capture video testimonials today. You've got your traditional on location, send out a video crew, highest quality, definitely there. Then you have the DIY self-recording, whether it's a link or software that they use or send back, or they're recording on their own. And then you have remote interview. So you're talking to them, you're live, but using technology to do it remotely. Each one of those have pros and cons. The first one, on location, definitely highest quality, but also the highest cost and the most time intensive for you, for your customer, and taking up their day. So that could prevent a little more barrier. The second one, self-recording, probably the most affordable and the least amount of time, but then you don't know what you're going to get back on the quality side. The third one I find is the best mix of getting close to like 70-80% of the potentially the quality of on location if you're our approach is like we send out video crews and you can conduct using their smartphone, but you're able to then not have the same cost of sending out a crew and take them the same amount of time. So it's looking at the different options and evaluating which one's the best fit based on your spot.
Right. I mean, in the classic, anybody who's been in the business for a while, I mean, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you really never thought about these other options. It was about sending a crew out there. And that meant making sure you understood the story in advance. And I just remember we'd have to have 3 or 4 interviews. And sometimes these people weren't very good on camera. So we'd have to have prep for them over and over again. It's like shooting a commercial in the sense that you really need professional lighting. The cost go up pretty dramatically. And if you haven't constructed a good story, and it costs the same amount to record a bad story as it does a good one. So, people underspend there. Oh, we'll
Hmm.
just get them to talk about stuff. Well, no, that doesn't get to your narrative arc. That doesn't get to problem solution. It doesn't really help the customer, as you described it, see themselves.
Hmm. Yes.
And there's no drama.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and by the way, you kind of need that in almost all of these cases. The pressure is a little off when you're doing it, either the do it yourself or the remote.
Remote.
But let's talk about the remote, because I know there's some technologies where they can download software onto their phone
Mhm.
and you can have a remote director in control of the
Right.
camera. That's not DIY. That's a remote interview, but that's different than what we're doing here on Zoom,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, that's the area that we're focused on, only because smartphones are far superior from webcams as far as the quality goes. In many ways, they rival prosumer cameras. So being able to use those powerful video camera right in our pocket, just giving them a couple extra, ideally, tools, like we ship a microphone and a tripod and a light. So it's just like just a little bit extra. But then there's now some great technology. They pop on their smartphone, they can talk seeing another person on their phone, but we're able to adjust all the settings like ISO, resolution, brightness, etc. So you're able to get a lot of the same quality of sending out a crew, but just using a smartphone.
Yeah, no, I've done it now. Hopefully, you're not sending a ring light for people like you and me with glasses, because I just never been able to work that. I'm assuming that's not what you're sending, right?
It is lighting is always a fun job. That's why you have to have somebody know how to do lighting. Otherwise, yeah, you're gonna get shiny lights like this.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's so funny because when I did remote interviews, I don't know, people would send me the ring light, and it's like, oh God, no, I'm wearing glasses, and there's no way to angle it. So
Mhm.
whereas these LED lights that I have,
Yep.
right, no problem. Okay.
Yeah.
And lighting does matter and sound does matter. I think these external webcams, like this Logitech 4K
Mhm.
camera, is pretty damn good.
The external ones definitely improve dramatically. The
Right.
integrated embedded ones that are
Right.
most
Yeah,
laptops.
yeah, yeah, no. So, but I think the key thing here is you're putting software on the phone that is allowing you to control all the things that you want to control, so you have maximum quality, but
Yes.
but that person is at a desk or wherever they want to be. What you don't get in that, and you often see in these videos is, the cutaway shot of the office, the cutaway shot of people in the conference room. Those little things that you always see in 60 Minutes reports when they're visiting an office.
Yes.
The ambient, and so
The
you're
B-roll.
limited to talking head, basically, right?
Not necessarily. It's then you just have to leverage other types of assets. Ideally, it's product footage, it's other visuals you can edit in later, but not the let me pretend to pick up the phone and talk to
Right.
someone. In some ways, I don't know if that content performs like it used to. People are know what you're doing. They actually prefer the more lo-fi, approachable content
Right.
today.
Okay. What about AI generated video to fill in? Not have you any experience or any of the folks that, because I mean it's coming along so fast. Uh
So, well, there's a couple of ways when you look at AI is like, what is it doing? I mean, one tool could be if you need to find stock footage
right,
while they're talking about key things, that could be a great use for today to like quickly identify and source and pull it in. And you could even use it to create more theoretical concepts, more imagery, and of like, all right, I'm
right.
feeling this pain and do it. But as far as like beyond that, I don't know if there's a whole lot of other use cases for AI in video just yet.
Yeah, I have one for you, which is you could probably create a simulated version of what you're planning to shoot. You give it the script, you give it the challenge, you give it the storyline. It creates this video for you, and then you can see what it's missing. Why isn't it working?
Mhm.
I believe you could probably create these as tests.
You effectively, yeah, creating a storyboard, pre-created version of it. It is great if you need to put a lot of time in it. I'm more of a fan of the interview approach. So you like pulling out content, but if you want to go the scripted approach, that could be a powerful way
Yeah, no,
to
I agree with you that scripted is
yeah.
not as good, but you still have some idea of the story you're telling. Anyway, I'm not going to push that. I bet it's going to happen pretty quickly. I bet it's going to have an impact because it's happening an impact on everything else. Okay. Amazing conversation. So much information. I think we should wrap up. Are there any other trends? Because I've threw out AI. Are there any other trends that we should be talking about for video testimonials in B2B land?
So the one that I mentioned is kind of repurposing and lo-fi content. UGC video testimonials are definitely, as far as the overall trend, I'm seeing over high quality, putting it out there in ads. As far as like AI or technology, tools like using AI tools for if you're doing the customer interview format, not scripted, of being able to pull out insights and repurpose that content, whether it's GPT, Claude, Boodlebox. There's actually one tool I like, Dovetail, for surfacing insights. So if you have a ton of different recordings, be able to ingest all the customer interviews and then be able to surface insights for using it. It's powerful.
Yeah, and that's it just reminds me you probably could also you talked earlier about having sort of your video bank. You could also use that you run all the content through it just to sort of have that library of searchable
Like,
data, right?
yes, be able to know what those pains are, those hesitancies, outcomes, dream
Right,
states. So when you're creating a campaign, you can quickly identify who's the story, who's somebody talked about X or Y.
right,
You can find that.
right. As opposed to the old days where you get the intern to watch all the videos again. Let's wrap up with two do's and one don't in the area of securing, producing, and or distributing customer testimonials.
Awesome. So it might be some repetition here, but that's kind of the
All
point.
good.
You got to keep it stuck in. So first do is make sure you have the right team member making the request. So if you're trying to get somebody on, don't send just that mass email out. Ideally, it's a salesperson. I actually seen like if it's a low volume business, it's the CEO that needs to do the outreach because they have the best relationship. Make sure you prioritize internally that the right person is doing the outreach. Second do is create that success story showroom. And that way you can actually leverage in all those other use cases. You know the right story to the right person and it doesn't collect digital dust. And then don't wait. Don't wait on getting customer stories. That's what I just got to say. It's like there's so many tools today to make it easier than ever before. People are ready. Don't wait. Start asking your customers for video testimonials.
And of course, if you have no expertise in house and don't know how to do it, there are great companies out there like TeraLeap and Alex Ferguson who can help you out. Alex, how can listeners find you and engage with you and your company?
Come follow me on LinkedIn. I'm posting a lot of content, fun and helpful content, hopefully, on how to do this. Search for Alexander Ferguson. You'll find me, or on our website, teraleap.io. And we have a copy of a free testimonial request guide. It can help you there too.
Awesome. All right. Well, I really appreciate you and your company and all the things that you have done for to help CMO huddles up their game with our customer testimonial. So much appreciated, Alex. Thank you so much. If you're a B2B CMO and you want to hear more conversations like this one, find out if you qualify to join our community of sharing, caring, and daring CMOs at cmohuddles.com. Renegade Marketers Unite is written and directed by Drew Neisser. Hey, that's me. This show is produced by Melissa Caffrey, Laura Parkin, and Ishar Cuevas. The music is by the amazing Burns Twins, and the intro voiceover is Linda Cornelius. To find the transcripts of all episodes, suggest future guests, and learn more about CMO Huddles or my CMO coaching service, please visit renegademarketing.com. I'm your host, Drew Neisser. Until next time, keep those renegade marketing caps on and strong.